Hi. The argument Nietzsche presents us in Beyond Good and Evil is an interesting one. He begins in the preface by claiming, assuming truth is a woman, what then? Is there not reason to suspect that philosophers, insofar as they were dogmatists, have known very little about women? Their aim was to charm a female. They have been especially inept in making advances to the truth with such awful serious and clumsy insistence. One thing is certain, she's not let herself be charmed. And nowadays, every dogmatism stands dejected, dispirited, if it's standing at all. Right? Now, what Nietzsche is trying to do right out of the gate here is call question to something that he's going to be questioning throughout the argument that we're going to see in the preface, the first and second parts of Beyond Good and Evil. He's questioning what is widely considered to be the will to truth, right? Which, at least intellectually, ideologically, should be behind a philosophical investigation. But assuming truth is a woman and philosophers are the lovers of truth, the methods that philosophers have employed to, in a sense, charm truth, right, Nietzsche finds highly questionable. Right? So, right off the bat in Beyond Good and Evil, we find that this is a deeply suspicious book, right? He's going to be suspicious of not only this general trajectory of philosophy, but also the psychological and physiological presuppositions of the philosophers who engage with this will to truth. Right? Now, what Nietzsche wants to claim is that we've suffered under dogmatism, right, for the better part of 2,400 years. Right? And there's an extent to which we've seen this in this course, starting with Socrates, moving to Aristotle, Kant, Mill, etc., etc. Right? So our concern in this course is his moral criticism, which really cannot be sort of extricated, separated from his criticism of the dogmas of the metaphysicians. Right? Now, one of the major dogmas that Nietzsche is going to be questioning in this book, again, finds its place in the preface here, right? Now, he claims, and we may be very near to a time when people will be constantly recognizing anew what in fact it was that furnished the cornerstone for those lofty, unconditional philosophers' edifices, once built by the dogmatists, some folk superstition from time immemorial, such as the superstition about souls, which today has not even ceased to sow its mischief as superstition about the subject and ego, some play on words, some seductive aspect of grammar, or of a daring generalization from very limited, very personal, very human, all too human facts. Right? So what Nietzsche wants to do in his criticism, and through his criticism we see his position, is slice to the very heart of philosophy. Right? Slice to the very heart of the dogmas of philosophy. Right? Now, in terms of how this course was structured, it's kind of built so that you can get an understanding of what Nietzsche is claiming. I started off with the conflict between Heraclitus and Parmenides, right? Change, multiplicity, and flux on the one hand, and no change, no multiplicity, no flux on the other hand, right? In attempting to resolve this conflict, what Nietzsche wants to point out is that we had to bring about several dogmatic assumptions to overcome the problem, largely by Nietzsche's account caused by Parmenides and ultimately Plato's appropriation of the conflict and resolution of it. Right? Now, one of the ways in which we overcame this conflict between Heraclitus and Parmenides is by sort of positing two different aspects of human, one that is an animal, one that is bodily, one that is desirous, one that's willful, and a part of humanity that's somehow removed or extricated from the nature, from change, from multiplicity, from flux, right? The immortal soul, which is more like Parmenides' realm of being, and that which will, in Platonic terms, give us access to Parmenides' being, right? So in order to, in a sense, overcome the distinction between Heraclitus and Parmenides, we've had to, in a sense, divide the world in two. Right? On the one hand, we have the forms or ideas, the essences, the perfect, changeless truth, and appearances. On the other hand, right? And what's more, the body and its sensual desires, right? So by separating these two in terms of Parmenides, Parmenides gets to be right in terms of the forms, right? Because they don't change. There's no multiplicity, there's no flux. And our immortal soul, which is somehow removed from nature, right, is able to relate to these things that are widely different than anything that we experience. Now, in the realm of experience, we have these appearances, and our body with its senses and its sensations and its sort of erotic sensualism. Right? Now, it's what traditional philosophy has done in terms of this two-tier system, whether you're talking about Kant, whether you're talking about Aristotle, whether you're talking about Plato, is, right, sort of oppose these two poles to one another. On the one hand, we've got the realm of appearances. Our senses deceive us, and we see only how things appear to us, right? Which is sort of less valuable. It's crappier than this realm of truth. The essences, the forms, which are permanent, changeless, they don't admit of multiplicity, etc. Right? And what's more, we've turned evasively against our body, right, and our experience of the natural world in favor of this notion of a perfect, immortal, permanent soul, right? So what Nietzsche is going to do in this argument is question these assumptions, right, which are the cornerstones of philosophy. And in terms of ethics, what he really wants to get at is a criticism of our, first off, will to this kind of truth, right? And secondly, the autonomous individual, right, that was, as we see, introduced by Kant and to some extent Mill, insofar as he wants us to be rational and not merely satisfy immediate desire, right? So this general tact in philosophy is something that he wants to question, right? And over the page in the preface, on your page 4, right, Nietzsche wants to talk about the bizarre position in world history that we're in with regard to this, right? But the struggle, he claims in the last paragraph in the preface, but the struggle against Plato, or to put it more clearly for the common people, the struggle against thousands of years of Christian ecclesiastical pressure for Christianity as the Platonism of the common people, has created a splendid tension of spirit in Europe, such as the earth has never seen. With this kind of tension in our bow, we can shoot at the most remote targets, right? Now, what he wants to claim here is that and the term spirit is not a complicated term. He uses it much the way we use school spirit, or when we speak of a spirited horse, right? What we mean, excuse me, is that we care, right? What we mean when we use the term spirit, or that somebody is spirited or has spirit, it's that they're disposed to the world in terms of beliefs that they really passionately care about, right? Now, in terms of this tension of spirit that Nietzsche's talking about, we're in a bizarre position because we no longer really buy this distinction, right? All of the dogma and religion that is behind this distinction as a force, right? We find that, well, as Nietzsche claims, God is dead. We no longer really culturally buy these assumptions, right? So we've had the benefit of a couple of thousand years of wrong ways of thinking, and the cleft between what we really want to passionately believe, and the beliefs